Meanwhile, a new crisis is developing as tens of thousands of Syrians amass at the Turkish border. Aid agencies have set up shelters on the Syrian side at Bab al-Salam, but the border crossing into Turkey remains closed, except to a handful of people who've been allowed in for medical treatment. President Erdogan says the refugees will be let into Turkey if necessary. Well, they're fleeing major regime assaults in Aleppo province, which has always been a major rebel stronghold. But in the last few days, regime forces backed by fighters from Iran and Hezbollah and Russian airstrikes have almost encircled the city, effectively cutting off a major rebel supply route. And they now made further gains in the north of the province, reaching within 25 kilometers from the Turkish border. Well, Francis Collins is in Ankara, and we'll have more from him on Angela Merkel's visit in a moment. But first, let's get the very latest from the border. Shamim Chowdhury is there for us. And Shamim, we're hearing more Syrians still arriving on the border. Is that the case?
Yes, that is certainly what we're hearing. They are arriving in their hundreds, if not their thousands, and it is as a direct result of the rapidly advancing Syrian forces, along with the Russian. Many people have to leave their homes, having to take shelter, find safety. They have nowhere else to go apart from heading north border. They have amassed over few days in their tens of thousands, just about a kilometre.
I'm afraid,
so
Shamim, we might have to leave it there. The connection to you is not particularly good. We'll try and re-establish that connection. But let's go to Francis Collins, who is in Ankara for us, where Angela Merkel is due to meet the Turkish Prime Minister any minute now. Francis, tell us, what is the main reason for her visit?
Well, the reason, of course, is the refugee crisis. Those of us who've been covering this for a few months now have been describing this as a crisis, given the numbers. But of course, the last few days have exacerbated this, as we've just been hearing from Shamim down on the border. The numbers have been getting bigger, and they've been getting bigger prior to the Syrian government onslaught on Aleppo a week ago. Now we expect something like 70,000 people on the border, on the southern side of the Turkish border. Of course, with the winter coming on, there was a lot of people saying that they thought the refugee flow to Europe may be stemmed. It hasn't really stemmed. Germany itself has taken the vast majority of these refugees, 1.1 million in the last year, some 70,000 in the last month alone. So Angela Merkel is here to re-emphasize the deal that they struck with Turkey back in November, to talk about the finance, the $3.3 billion that is compensating Turkey for looking after these refugees, and to ascertain what is exactly going to happen from here on in with the increase in numbers of people massing on the Turkish border.
We're just looking at live pictures now in Ankara of the German Chancellor Angela Merkel meeting with the Turkish Prime Minister. Turkey is in a tricky situation, though, isn't it? Because on the one hand, the EU is saying provide sanctuary to those fleeing the war in Aleppo, while on the other hand, it's saying reduce the numbers of refugees travelling to Europe. What can it do?
Well, you're right. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. Effectively, Europe is not in agreement, as we know. There is no concert of opinion with regard to how to deal with these refugees. Countries are not agreeing to take them. France are taking some 25,000 over the next 5 years. Similar number in the United Kingdom compared to nations like Germany and Norway. So there is no agreement. And effectively, the EU is saying to Turkey, look, you're not a member, but you're on our southern flank. We want you to stem this flow. We want you to sort something out. The main driver in trying to solve this refugee crisis to help people has been the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, which is why she's here yet again to talk with the Prime Minister. They obviously know each other very well. This is the second time she's been here to talk on this issue, the fifth time in the last 4 months they've got together. So there's still plenty to talk about, and they've got to work out a way forward.
Francis, tell us a bit about the pressure that Turkey is under in terms of resources. I mean, it's already hosting 2.5 million refugees from Syria, and now there are thousands more on the border. This 3 billion euros that's been promised from the EU, that was, to help them with the current refugees that they do have. Can they even handle any more?
Well, they say they can, but of course money is an issue. Let's not forget this has been a conflict that's been going on since March in 2011. It was only a few weeks after that the first refugees started to cross over into Turkey. The refugee camps themselves hold something between 250 and 300,000 refugees. The vast majority are living outside the camps. They're living illegally. Now, when you visit the camps in the south, you are impressed as to how well they are run, how well people are catered for. But of course, Turkey is saying it has spent something in the region of $9 billion so far. And they say the $3.3 billion they're going to get from the EU doesn't really compensate them. However, at the same time, they're talking about their neighbours and they're saying they will protect these people come what may. This has happened very quickly in the last week or so. Don't forget, it was barely a few days ago there were ongoing peace talks in Geneva between the Syrian opposition representatives and the Syrian governments. That fell down very quickly after that onslaught on Aleppo. So the situation is moving very quickly, it's changing quickly, and Turkey is the one that's looking at these vast numbers that are massing on the border just south of Kilis on the southern end of Turkey.
OK, we'll leave it there. Francis Collins, many thanks. Joining us there from Ankara, and we can see those live pictures of Chancellor Angela Merkel with the Turkish Prime Minister. They're due to hold talks in the next few hours and then have a live press conference. And of course, we will bring that to you when it happens.